The desert training base was always loud at sunrise. Boots struck the ground in uneven rhythm, recruits shouted over one another, and instructors barked orders sharp enough to cut the morning air. In the middle of that chaos stood Ava Hale, quiet, steady, and almost invisible in the crowd. She didn't push to the front, didn't try to impress, and didn't trade jokes like the others. She simply adjusted her pack, tightened her gloves, and waited for instructions with her eyes lowered and her mind calm. Her silence became the first thing people noticed. To the louder recruits, it was a sign of weakness. They saw a girl who didn't speak unless someone directly addressed her, who avoided unnecessary chatter, who reacted to insults with nothing more than a slow blink. And in a place where bravado was a language, silence was a crime. By the end of the first day, whispers had already settled on her name. The Mouse, they called her. Too soft for real military work. She heard every comment, every snicker, every exaggeration about how long she'd last before quitting. She never responded. What none of them knew was that Ava's silence wasn't shyness, it was control. She had trained herself to observe more than she spoke, to listen for details others missed, to stay collected even when provoked. She had learned long ago that true power didn't always need noise. But she also knew she couldn't reveal the real reason behind her calm. Not yet. Her transfer orders included strict instructions. Blend in. Do not reveal your operational history. Stand down unless necessary. And she followed orders with absolute discipline. Still, the harassment grew. A group of overconfident recruits boys who believed volume made them strong began circling her anytime the instructors weren't looking. They mocked her height, her small frame, her quiet voice. They nudged her shoulder when passing, blocked her path in hallways, and nudged her gear in formation just to see if she would react. She never did. Her stillness only made them try harder, but beneath that stillness lived something they could not see. Every insult brushed against the locked door of a past life she wasn't allowed to mention. Behind that door were missions, scars, and skills far beyond the scope of anyone at this base. For now, Ava Hale stayed silent. But silence was never the same as weakness. The heat was brutal during the obstacle course drill, the kind that baked sand into the skin and made every breath feel heavy. Recruits ran in staggered lines, shouting encouragement to their friends and cursing at the ones slowing them down. In the middle of it all, Ava ran quietly, her movements steady and precise. She didn't waste air on yelling. She saved every breath for efficiency. That calm irritated the bullies more than if she had screamed back at them. When they reached the cargo net climb, Ava placed her foot to begin her ascent, but the moment she shifted her weight, the rope jerked violently. Someone had loosened the bottom knot just enough to destabilize it. Her boots slipped, her body swung sideways, and she slammed shoulder first into the wooden post. Gasps rang out, followed by snickers. One of the boys muttered loudly, "Told you Mouse can't climb." Ava didn't shout or curse. She simply reset her grip, ignored the throbbing pain in her shoulder, and climbed again with the same controlled movement as before. She reached the top faster than half the squad, then dropped down and ran toward the next station. Behind her, laughter still echoed, but she tuned it out like background noise. Later in the barracks, the jokes grew bolder. They took her seat in the mess hall, hit her canteen during hydration checks, and whispered about how long she'd last before breaking down. They pushed her backpack off her bunk once, letting everything spill across the floor. Ava knelt silently, picking her gear up piece by piece, never making eye contact. The silence unsettled some recruits. They expected anger, tears, something. But Ava simply restored her equipment with an expression so calm it bordered on unnatural, yet the instructors had begun noticing patterns. She never finished first, almost as if she deliberately held back, but she never fell below second place. Her reaction time was razor sharp. Her form during hand-to-hand drills was too polished for a beginner. She breathed like someone trained in high-stress missions, Not basic training, something didn't fit, but the bullies didn't see that. All they saw was a quiet girl refusing to fight back. And in their arrogance, they mistook her discipline for fear. They had no idea they were provoking someone far beyond their level, someone who could dismantle them without raising her. Word spread quickly through the base that a major evaluation drill was coming, a night operation modeled after a real ambush scenario, designed to push recruits to their breaking point. For many of them, this would be the hardest test they had ever faced. The instructors made it clear: freeze, and you fail. Break discipline, and you fail. Show fear, and you fail. As they settled over the desert, the recruits formed up with stiff shoulders and tight jaws. The bullies who mocked Ava all week were suddenly quieter than usual, stealing nervous glances at the dark horizon. Ava stood in formation like a still shadow, breathing evenly, her face unreadable. Unlike the others, she didn't fidget, didn't whisper, didn't scan the ground for comfort. She looked like someone who had walked into darkness before and understood it. At exactly 2,300 hours, the drill began. The first explosion was a smoke charge that hit the ground just feet away from the squad. Then came the flashbangs, bright, blinding bursts that threw half the recruits into confusion. From the ridges above, Delta evaluators in full gear rushed down like ghosts, firing simulation rounds and dragging people into mock captures. Panic erupted instantly. One of the bullies dropped his rifle. Another curled behind a rock, shouting directions that made no sense. The squad fractured in seconds, scattering under the pressure of noise, smoke, and the fear of failing. But Ava moved with a calmness that didn't belong in such chaos. She grabbed the panicking recruit behind the rock, pulled him up with surprising strength, and guided him toward cover as if navigating a battlefield map only she could see. When another recruit froze under simulated fire, Ava slid in, dragged him behind a dune, and signaled him to breathe. Without raising her voice, she gave precise commands that steadied him. Every movement she made was sharp, clean, practiced, nothing like a trainee. At one point, a Delta operator leaped toward her from the smoke, expecting easy elimination. Ava reacted instantly. She pivoted, knocked his weapon away, took him to the ground using perfect technique, then released him the moment the signal whistle confirmed the takedown. The operator looked at her. The Delta team leader radioed up the chain. "She's not a recruit. She's one of ours." Ava Hale walked through the chaos like she'd done it 100 times, because she had. The recruits woke the next morning exhausted, sore, and still shaken from the night drill. Most had barely slept, replaying their mistakes, their panic, and the shock of how quickly everything fell apart. By sunrise, whispers filled the mess hall, rumors about the mysterious operators who ambushed them, and especially about the quiet girl who had moved through the chaos like she was born in it. Ava sat alone at a corner table, eating quietly, as if nothing unusual had happened. Her face gave nothing away. The bullies avoided her gaze now, unsure what they had witnessed. Some tried convincing themselves it was luck, or that the drill wasn't as hard as it seemed. But deep inside, they felt it. There was something about her they didn't understand. Just as the recruits lined up for morning inspection, the unmistakable thump of helicopter blades rolled across the base. Everyone snapped their heads up. A UH-60 Black Hawk descended onto the landing pad with a commanding presence that erased every conversation in the yard. From the open door stepped a man whose reputation walked ahead of him, General Marcus Red, the legendary Delta Force commander. The air shifted. Instructors stiffened, officers scrambled, and recruits stared in stunned silence. A 3-star general did not visit basic training ever. Yet he walked with purpose, heading straight toward the formation of wide-eyed trainees. He didn't address the instructors. He didn't greet the officers. His boots carried him directly to the quietest person in the entire row. "Ava Hale," he said, his voice like steel. "Step forward." Gasps rippled through the line. Ava obeyed without hesitation, standing at attention with calm clarity in her eyes. The bullies nearly lost their balance. They had no idea what was happening. General Red faced her squarely. "Permission to break your cover, Sergeant?" He asked. The word hit the recruits like a physical shock. Ava gave a single nod. The general turned to the stunned formation and began speaking with crisp authority. He explained that Ava Hale was not a recruit at all, but a former Delta Force operative assigned to a covert evaluation program. She had completed missions none of them were cleared to read. She had worn a rank most soldiers never dream of. She had volunteered to return undercover to test leadership potential from within. The bullies stared at her. Pale and speechless, the quiet girl they mocked was a warrior whose shadow alone outranked them all. Silence swept through the training yard after General Red finished revealing the truth. Every recruit stood frozen, their minds scrambling to reconcile the quiet girl they mocked with the elite warrior she truly was. Ava Hale didn't shift, didn't smirk, didn't even glance at the bullies who suddenly looked like they wished the ground would swallow them. She simply waited steady, composed, the same way she had been since the day she arrived. General Red stepped back and addressed the entire formation. "You judged her by her silence," he said, his voice carrying the weight of years on the battlefield. "But silence can hide discipline, patience, and power you don't understand. Remember that, or you'll never survive the field." Then he gave Ava an order, not a request, not a suggestion, but a command. She would serve as lead trainee for the remainder of the program. Every recruit, including those who tormented her, would follow her direction. The bullies swallowed hard. This was no longer punishment, it was accountability. When the general departed, leaving the yard trembling in the rotor wash of the departing helicopter, all eyes shifted to Ava. She stepped forward, her voice steady and low, but now carrying a presence none could ignore. "I'm not here to embarrass anyone," she said. "I'm here to build a team worth standing beside. Whatever happened before today stays there. From this moment on, you follow my lead not because of my past, but because together we're going to earn the future." Her words weren't dramatic. They weren't loud, but they landed with more force than any of the insults thrown at her over the past week. There was humility in her tone, but also strength, the kind that didn't need to raise its voice to be felt. The transformation began before the sun fully rose. The same recruits who mocked her were now watching her every movement, trying to learn from her precision. The same boys who brushed past her in the hall now stood at attention when she entered a room. In drills, she corrected mistakes without ridicule, coached without ego, and pushed them harder than any instructor had. Yet they followed her willingly. By graduation day, Ava Hale wasn't the mouse, or the quiet girl, or any of the names whispered behind her back. She was the force that reshaped the entire group. And the bullies, once her loudest critics, became her most loyal supporters. In the end, they learned a truth stamped into their memories forever: some warriors don't roar. They rise,